All right, thanks, guys. Welcome to the show. Happy Sunday to you. A couple early games in progress right now, but we do have some lines out for Monday's MLB action. But before we get into that, I just want to give a quick shout out, a big thank you to my headline sponsor for today's program. That's Jimmy and the boys at GhostPicksATS.com. And if you like making money on sports, there's no reason why you shouldn't check out one or more of their very affordable money-making packages. That's Jimmy and the boys at GhostPicksATS.com, GhostPicksATS.com. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at our Monday slate of baseball games and personal leans. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And leading off, we've got Red Sox O's, 7:05 Baltimore, and a 15-cent move toward the Red Sox already in the early going here. They open $1.60 up to $1.75, totals 9 flat, and at the moment we got Rick Porcello for the Bo Sox, Kevin Gausman for the O's. And speaking of the O's, real tough sledding against this Red Sox team, just 1-9 in their head-to-head matchups with Boston. Even worse, this Baltimore squad's won a pitiful 2 of 20 in their games at the current market price. Now, total-wise, Baltimore's just 6-13 to the over when Gausman makes the first pitch. Baltimore's also gone just 10-23 to the over versus teams allowing less than 4 runs per contest. So with all those factors in mind, I'm going to go ahead and take the Red Sox run line and the under 9 flat. Next game, Dodgers-Phillies, 7:05 Citizens Bank Park, and a 10-cent fade of the Dodgers in the early going here. They open 145 down to 135, totals 8.5. 57% are still leaning Los Angeles. And at the moment, we got Ross Stripling for L.A., Zach Eflin for the Fightins. And speaking of the Fightins, not real productive in these types of spots here. Just 9 of 20 in their games at the current moneyline price. They're also taking on a Dodgers team who's 9-5 when Ross Stripling makes the start. Now, scoring-wise, lots of unders between these two squads. 7-5 to the under when Eflin starts. 9-5 to the under when Stripling starts on the other side. So all that said and done, I'm going to go ahead and take the Dodgers outright and the under 8.5. Next game, Cardinals-Reds, 7:10 Cincinnati. And a 10-cent fade of the Reds in the early going here. They open $1.30 down to $1.20. Total open 9 up to 9.5. And at the moment, we are looking at Daniel Ponce de Leon for the Cardinals, Luis Castillo for the Reds. And speaking of the Reds, they really struggled in their games against the Cardinals. Just 3 of 13 in their head-to-head matchups with St. Louis, since he's also dropped their last 3 straight. Now, scoring-wise, lots of overs in these Cincy games. 14-6 to the over when Castillo makes the start. They're also 9-1 to the over in their last 10 ball games. So all that said and done, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Cardinals outright, despite Ponce de Leon making his first start, and the over 9.5. Next game, Pirates-Indians. That's 7:10 Cleveland, and no surprises here as the Indians are the $2.60 favorites. Total was 8 up to 8.5, and at the moment, 62% of the public bettors are leaning toward the Indians. Now, pitching-wise, we're looking at Trevor Williams for the Buccos, Corey Kluber for the Wahoos. And speaking of the Indians, they're winning a solid 78% of their ball games at the current moneyline odds. They've also been real good at progressive field, going 28-14 in their games at home. Now, scoring-wise, lots of overs in these Kluber starts. 14-6 to the over for the Indians when Corey makes the first pitch. We've also seen a good amount of overs at progressive field this year. 70% to the over for the Indians in their games in Cleveland. So all that said and done, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Indians run line and the over 8.5. Next game, Braves-Marlins, 7:10 Atlanta. And a 10-cent fade of the Braves in the early going here. They opened 140 down to 130. Total's 8 flat. 80% are still leaning Atlanta. And at the moment, we've got Sean Newcomb for the Braves, Jose Urena for the Marlins. And speaking of the fish, they've really struggled when Urena takes the bump. They lost 5 of 19 when Jose makes the first pitch. Miami's also struggled in their head-to-head matchups with the Braves, dropping 2 of 7 when taking on their divisional foe. Now, total-wise, 5-2 to the over in these teams' 7 head-to-head contests. Atlanta games also went 14-6 to the over versus teams averaging less than 4 runs per ball game. So all that said and done, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Braves outright and the over, 8 flat. All right, next game, Padres-Mets. 7-10 Flushing Queens and a 5-cent fade of the Mets at home. They opened $1.35 down to $1.30. Total was 8.5 down to 8 flat. And at the moment, we're looking at Joey Lucchesi for the Pods, Zach Wheeler for the Mets. And speaking of the Mets, they've been real good in these types of spots here. 12-7 in their games at the current moneyline price. They're also taking on a Padres team who's won just 5 of 14 when Joey Lucchesi made the start. Now, total-wise, New York's just 6-17 to the over when taking on teams scoring less than 4 runs per contest. The Mets are also just 5-13 to the over at home when the line was 8 to 8.5. So all those trends in mind, I'm going to go ahead and take the Mets outright and the under, 8 flat. Next game, A's-Rangers, 8:05 Arlington. And much to my surprise, we saw a nickel fade of the A's in the early going here. Texas opened $1.10 up to $1.15. Totals at 11 flat. And at the moment, we're looking at Brett Anderson for the Athletics, Cole Hamels for the Rangers. But despite making and taking most of the early money in this matchup here, we're looking at a Texas squad who really struggles when Hamels makes the first pitch. And as a matter of fact, the Rangers have won just 7 of 19 games when Cole makes the start on the bump. Texas has also really struggled against winning ball clubs, posting a record of just 16-28 versus teams over 500. Now, scoring-wise, really high total posted in my opinion. Texas went 13-6 to the under when Hamels made the start. Meanwhile, on the other side, similar song and dance there, as 5 out of Anderson's last 6 starts all fell under the line for Oakland as well. So with all those stats in mind, I'm going to take the underdog, A's, and the under, 11 flat. Next game, Nationals-Brewers, 8-10 Milwaukee. And a flip of the lines in this one as Washington was plus $1, now minus $1.10. Totals 9 flat, and 54% of the public bettors are leaning toward the Nationals. Now, pitching-wise, we got Gio Gonzalez for the Nats, Jhoulys Chacin for the Brew Crew. And speaking of the Brewers, they've been solid in their games where Chacin makes the start. 14-7 in their contest where Chacin made the first pitch. They're also taking on a Washington team who's lost 15 of 23 as the official Vegas underdog. Now, scoring-wise, Washington's 14-5 to the under on the road when the line was 9 or higher. The Nationals also went 13-6 to the under when Gio made the first pitch. So all those stats in mind, I'm going to go ahead and take the Brewers outright and the under, 9 flat. All right, next and final game for the show, it is going to be Tigers-Royals, 8:15 Kansas City, and much to my surprise here, Kansas City's the $1.05 favorites. Totals at 9.5. And at the moment, we are looking at Francisco Liriano for the Tigers, Heath Fillmyer for the Royals. But despite being the early favorites in this one, Kansas City has really struggled at Kauffman Stadium, winning just 8 of 28 in front of their home crowd. They've also, I think that's 8 of 38 in front of their home crowd. No, we'll go with 8 of 28. Yeah, 8 and 20. No, 8 and 30. They've gone 8 and 38 in front of their home crowd. Yeah, that's right. They've also struggled in their games at the current market price, dropping 17 of 23 ball games at the current moneyline odds. Now, total-wise, lots of unders between these two ball clubs. 7-3 to the under in their 10 head-to-head matchups. Meanwhile, on the Detroit side of things, they went just 6-9 to the over when Liriano made the start. So with all those trends in mind, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the underdog Tigers and the under 9.5. All right, folks, that is going to do it for me. Thank God. Wow, what a terrible read for me. Could not pronounce anything. But anyway, regardless, before I get out of here, I just have to remind you to check out my daily best play at patreon.com/BrockPage. And with a documented win percentage of 60% for the entire year of 2017, you're hurting yourself each and every day you're not subscribed. I also want to remind you to check out my headline sponsor, that's Jimmy and the boys at GhostPicksATS.com. Jimmy and his team of young, hungry, expert consultants at Ghost Picks are the most passionate in the business. And if you thought I was good at handicapping games, these guys are amongst the best in the industry. And as always, thank you for watching today's program. I hope you enjoyed all this great free information. And please don't forget to check out my daily best play at patreon.com/BrockPage.